What's up, guys? Eli here, back for another CD collection video. 10 of my, 10 CDs from my alphabetized collection, and actually we have 12 today because that's just kind of how it worked out. It's all from the same band, so I just wanted to do the whole discography. There is actually one release in this stack that I'm missing, but I'm still going to go over that just because I know I own it, and it's killing me that I don't know where it is. But anyways. So today we're going to be talking about one of the most influential and just all-around best death metal bands to come out of the U.S. I know we've had a lot of good death metal bands, but we're going to be talking about none other than New York's Immolation. You're well aware of who Immolation are. They started in the very late '80s. Started out as a band called Rigor Mortis. They would change their name to Immolation a little bit after that, because there already was a band called Rigor Mortis from Texas. I have often said, I've gone on record saying, Immolation, in my opinion, just might be the best death metal band of all time, pound for pound. They have no bad releases. Their discography is incredibly strong. It's goddamn near flawless, to be honest. And for a band with as much brevity as Immolation, that's saying a lot. I feel like nowadays, in 2022, take all the death metal bands that are from the early days that are still around. How many of them have a discography as vast and as strong as Immolation? Incantation, their discography is very similar. It's where it's been completely good, no duds. I would make an argument for Cannibal Corpse. I know some of you guys aren't a big fan, but I'd definitely die on that hill, and I would make an argument that their discography is incredibly strong, and also with no dud albums. 1991, Roadrunner Records would bring us Dawn of Possession. This is an all-time classic in death metal, and that is something that is debated by nobody. Everyone will agree on that. Most people will say this is their best album, or in the very least their favorite album. I love this album. It is not my favorite Immolation album, but it's damn good. I have the 2003 Metal Mind re-release, by the way. Oddly enough, you might remember this. I never owned this album until like a month or two ago. Weird, I know. I've heard it dozens of times. Just never owned a goddamn copy. Number two, surprisingly, and I don't remember the reason for this, but their second album wouldn't come out until '96. A 5-year gap in between albums, especially in between your first and second album, that is usually not a good sign for a band. That usually means they're either done for or not far off. So I don't know why. There's got to be a reason or a number of reasons why it took 5 years in between those albums. So if anyone knows, let me know, because I'm very curious. But yeah, hereinafter, they would jump labels between those two albums. They're now on Metal Blade Records, and another phenomenal, flawless album. In my opinion, I think it's better than Dawn of Possession, but that's just my opinion, and I'm sure that's completely debatable. Number three, from 1999, we have my personal favorite album from Immolation and my introduction to the band. We're talking about Failures for Gods. First album I ever got from them, first album I ever heard from them, and it is just stuck with me throughout all these years. I still absolutely love it. And yeah, like I said, this is my top Immolation album. I know I'm a little bit in the minority there, but that's okay. Absolutely love this album. It's got some production issues. Specifically, the drum sounds on here are really. It's not. It's a bad drum production, but it's still a fantastic album. I don't really let that production take anything away for me personally. I have no problem listening past the flawed production. So hereinafter, by the way, this was actually the last album to feature Craig Smolowski. And then Failures for Gods, this would be the first album with Alex Hernandez on drums. Album number 4, Close to a World Below. This is probably my second favorite Immolation album, and this is so strong. This came out in 2000. Still signed to Metal Blades at this point. So this would be the last album to feature guitarist Tom Wilkinson. Amazing, amazing album. His final chapter with the band. Album number 5 from 2002, we would have Unholy Cult. Another flawless album. Their first 5 albums are just so perfect. This would be the first album to feature Bill Taylor on guitars, and the last album to have Alex Hernandez on drums. So Bill Taylor, you might remember him from other bands, like he was in Angel Corpse for a while as well. Album number 6, we would get Harnessing Ruin. Now this would be the first chink in the armor, if you ask me. This album kind of be a grower for me. Came out in 2005, by the way. So this album was Immolation kind of going in a little bit of a different direction, trying to do something different, and you can't blame them. It's a little bit experimental. It's more dissonant sounding. It is, however, kind of a speed bump for a lot of people. This album, for the longest time, I did not like it. Nowadays, it's like every other time I listen to it, I'll like it. I'll go from liking it to disliking it pretty much every other time I listen to it. It's a weird album. I do like it, but this is one of my least favorite Immolation albums. A couple years after that, 2007, they would put out the EP Hope and Horror, which is the CD that I have, but I can't find. It's somewhere. I still have it. I just don't know where it is. It had two or three new studio tracks, and then it has a DVD with a live performance on it, which is awesome, because Immolation are one of the best live bands in death metal by far. So yeah, 2007 would bring us Shadows in the Light. This is kind of a companion piece to Harnessing Ruin. With this album, they were kind of stepping a little bit away from from the experimentation. They were kind of getting a little bit more on track, just kind of more straightforward death metal, still a little bit dissonant. This album is pretty catchy. For me, I feel like the songwriting is a little bit watered down. This is one of my least favorite Immolation albums. They signed to Century Media for this. A lot of people really like this. I'm just kind of not one of them. I do like it, but I certainly don't love it. Yeah, Harnessing Ruin came out on Olympic Recordings, by the way. I know I didn't say that. Um, and it's worth noting that on Harnessing Ruin, this was the first album to have Steve Shilady on drums, who he's in the band to this day, and Immolation, like Ross and Rob, would actually go on record to say that Steve Shilady's the best drummer they ever had. He's the drummer they were looking for the whole time. 2010, Nuclear Blast Records. This time we would get Majesty and Decay. Starting with this album, I feel like they started to go for a cleaner production, and you could even say Shadows in the Light and even Harnessing Ruin kind of had a cleaner production. This album saw them with cleaning up and polishing their production even more, which was a little bit jarring at first, I gotta say, but it didn't take me very long to get used to. The songwriting on here is just excellent. This is a really, really good album. A really good modern Immolation album. I think this album is fantastic. I'm not a fan of the logo change. They went to this stupid logo for a while. They actually started that back in the Harnessing Ruin days. No, God, no. Oh, shit. So I didn't really think of it this way. They actually started using this logo way back to Failures for Gods. Yeah, not a fan of when bands dumb their logos down like that, but I mean, the music still is fucking phenomenal, and that's what really matters. So yeah, Majesty and Decay, this is one of my favorite modern Immolation albums. Very, very strong. 2013, still on Nuclear Blast Records, they would bring us Kingdom of Conspiracy. This album was a major grower for me. This is the last album with Bill Taylor on guitar. I hated this album when I first got it. This album would see their production at an all-time high as far as being polished and just kind of plastic sounding. The production is distracting and god awful on this album. That said, if you can be patient, if you can listen to this with an with an open mind, the songwriting and the musicianship that you love Immolation for, it's all here. This is a good, very good Immolation album. You got to get used to the production, and I'm telling you, it's probably going to take you at least a couple listens. But once you get past it, you got a good album here. I also don't like how they kind of ditched the satanic theme and went for more of a political vibe. But I will say I've read the lyrics to this album, and the lyrics are still really, really good. They're just not, again, they're more social commentary and political, but still really good. 2017 would bring us this album, one of my favorite albums from that year, and one of my favorite Immolation albums of recent years. We're talking about Atonement. First off, they'd bring back the classic logo, always a good thing. This was the first album to have Alex Books on guitar. Alex Books from Gorephobia. I think he was in Incantation for a while. Alex is a underground legend for sure, and really cool to have him in the band. Talk about adding a strong weapon to your arsenal. This album, I felt like they would start again to kind of experiment a little bit with their sound. They would go back to bring back that kind of dissonant riffing that they kind of would experiment with here and there in the past. I feel like that's a little bit stronger on this album, but they really, really make it work. This is probably their best album in probably like a decade. I really liked this, and I still like it to this day. Fantastic album. This year, 2022, still signed to Nuclear Blast, we'd get Act of God. And this is also a great album. I've only listened to it once so far, and I completely loved it. I'm still kind of in the process of comparing it to Atonement. I had more time with Atonement, obviously, so it hasn't won me over yet as far as thinking that it's better than Atonement. It's definitely on par. I don't know if I'd say I like it more just yet, but I got to give it some more listens. So once I do that, I'll be able to come to a conclusion. But this is definitely not a disappointment. This sits next to Atonement quite nicely. I just need to spend more time with it, but maybe I'll listen to it tonight. I really need to get on the ball. Like I said, only one listen so far. This is a good album. It needs many, many more listens. So that's it, guys. That's 12 CDs, including the one I wasn't able to show you, but that's the Immolation discography. They also have another EP called Providence that came out a handful of years ago. I never was able to get a copy of that. It's really hard to get now, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think Immolation are the best death metal band of all time? Top 5? What do you think? Anyways, I gotta take off. Louis says hello. He's down here. And got some really cool videos in the works that hopefully I'll be able to bring to you within the next week or two. And thanks for stopping by, guys. Cheers.